Hey, it's Luke with Out of Darts. Today we are launching a brand new rival flywheel powered blaster. Every king needs a queen. This is Juno. Let's get going. This is the Out of Darts Juno. Now, let me get this out of the way. This is obviously a product on our shop, so while this isn't a sponsored video, this is a product video at the end of the day. You should be familiar with this by now. You'll find a link in the description as well as the pinned comment, and hopefully, if we've got YouTube shopping figured out, the little shelf down below the video as well. This type of blaster has a little bit of pedigree and also a soft spot in my heart because it's really what got me going in the hobby. My whole modding journey and everything in this shop started with the Hurricane. When I got this blaster initially, one of the very first things I did to it was simply jam a long piece of PVC and let gravity feed balls through the flywheels as fast as possible, which was infinitely hilarious. I also then, of course, built this version of the blaster, which is really the genesis of the shop. In addition to testing these tubed versions, I also just used washing machine hose, which ultimately got used in the Proton pack. A little more on that at the end of the video as well. Enter 3D printing. This original prototype to me now is pretty laughable. This was me knowing nothing about CAD and painfully putting something together in Tinkercad. These designs got a little more refined over time, and I played with different configurations, and eventually we got proper switches, and ultimately worked with Tarek to develop the actual first Jupiter that we launched over 5 years ago. Despite Jupiter being a tremendously popular product, there were always a lot of things we wanted to change on it. The first being that there was a lot of waste because of how this was printed. The front two shells and the grip halves have a ton of support. It takes a lot of cleanup, a lot of extra effort, and they're a little finicky to print. Additionally, it's a pretty blocky design, and we've learned so much in the past 5 years since putting this together, and Tarek especially has really grown by leaps and bounds when it comes to designing blasters. The next big issue was the toy screws. It's easily the #1 complaint of this blaster was that when you put toy screws into plastic and thread them into plastic, they really don't allow you to rethread them over and over, and it's just not a long-term reliable product. Additionally, we had an issue in Fusion 360 where our original Jupiter files are essentially completely broken. We cannot get them recovered or repaired to function properly, and the blaster would essentially need to be completely redesigned just to make any changes whatsoever. At this point, Tarek and I decided, let's make a new version of this blaster. It's been popular, we love it, we like playing with it. It always brings joy to people's faces when they dump that magazine. And that's where we got to Juno. Since we were going to start from scratch anyway, it gave us the opportunity to ask you, our loyal viewers and fans and customers, what you wanted most in a rival blaster. This was a really interesting poll that we put up, and you'll see the results on screen of the ranking of order of priority, what people thought was most important and least important. So we ultimately focused on your inputs on that poll to determine our final design. This is Juno. Juno is a compact rival magazine-fed blaster. It shoots standard rival balls through a rival magazine. It's compatible with a wide range of magazines, including some of the oddball magazines, the 7-rounders, the 12-rounders, and most importantly, it's also compatible with the rival 15-round mags. Now, this was especially exciting because these are insanely durable, they're really thick-walled, and they hold 15 rounds. So you get that extra bit of capacity. Lack of magazines has been a really sore point for the shop because ultimately we weren't able to sell these, and a lot of the knockoffs and third-party ones were really poor quality, and we didn't feel good carrying them on the shop. Additionally, there have been so many different variations on the mag release and how it catches that has caused issues as well. Our solution there was ultimately to catch in the blaster on a different point, on these notches rather than farther back, and that's made it compatible with all of the existing rival mags that are out there. One of the biggest changes we've made to Juno is creating brand new custom CNC lathed flywheels. These flywheels feature heavy concavity and serrations for better grip on the ball. Because of the new wheels, we've been able to improve the performance all the way up to about 130 feet per second. What we ultimately learned in our testing is that when firing the rival balls at higher velocities, there were diminishing returns on range. Interestingly enough, the difference between 150 FPS and 200 FPS was only about 8 feet of actual travel distance. And the difference between about 130 and 150 is also only about 10 feet. The returns are really diminishing from that point. Whereas when you're looking at 100 to 130, you're actually gaining a good 20, 25 feet or so, depending on conditions, of course. The blaster is, of course, full auto, and we will have a variety of pushers. Inside this, we've got a 1,000 RPM motor, which is about 15 rounds a second, maybe a hair more. And that's probably about the top I would put on here, maybe a 18 rounds a second is the top. If you go any farther, you will ultimately bog down the flywheels quite a bit. They don't have time to spin back up in time. With Juno, we've gone with a single trigger, but we may also have a rev trigger available if you're interested in that method. Another big problem we did have with Jupiter is that anybody that was inexperienced with a rev trigger could easily jam the blaster and overwhelm the flywheels, causing a complete failure in the system. Because you now cannot fire without revving first because of the two-stage trigger, this has somewhat alleviated that issue. In the back here, you will notice there is a thumb screw. We're going to include a thumb screw on every blaster because it's just a better solution overall. And you've got a very large battery capacity up top. The blaster is a little larger overall, but we really wanted to accommodate an easy to access battery compartment with more space for a variety of battery types, meaning customers can reuse existing 3S batteries they have. We really wanted to focus on printability with this blaster and making all of these parts use as little or no support as possible. Additionally, on the sides, you'll see there are rails. You've got an option to do rail mounts, holster plate mounts, magnetic mounts, or to completely have them flat and not there at all. On the note of design and files, I think you will all be really excited that we are trying something different with Juno. These will be available in both hardware kit, 3D printed kit, and fully assembled. You did hear me right. You will be able to download these files, print them yourself, build them yourself, and do what you see fit with them, provided it's for non-commercial use only, of course. We have gone back and forth on the open source sort of method and giving files out, and there are a lot of problems there. One of the biggest ones is print tolerances. When we released the initial Jupiter, print tolerances and your prints were pretty finicky and had to be exactly right. Here we've got a little bit more room for forgiveness. Simultaneously, the printing world and the quality of the 3D printers has gotten better and better and better, so we are more confident that customers are going to be able to print these on their own and successfully put them together. We will have these files available on the listing as well as on GitHub as user out of darts. There you can give us feedback, leave notes, and download the prints and parts for yourself. We will be making changes and updates as time goes on to improve the parts based on your feedback and on our team's feedback, and we can't wait to see what you all do with them. So we will have hardware kits available right off the bat, so you can buy the hardware that's got all the screws, thumb screw, wire, the flywheels, the motors, all of that ready to go and get printing. Now let's have some goofy fun. So I've gone ahead and removed this by removing just the thumb screw and 2 M3 screws here that again go into brass inserts. We can then take our Proton pack and plug it back in. So yes, this blaster is compatible with the existing Proton pack. You simply take your adapter, there's a pass-through hole on a different rear end here. Again, these will be available in the files. You plug that in, put your battery door back on, and reassemble. At that point, the blaster now has no battery, and we are transferring power over to the Proton pack. And then we can get it going. I never get tired of that. It's just too much fun. I've actually stopped playing HVZ with this Proton pack because it's such a different style of play. You don't have that like franticness of reloading magazines, and I kind of like that adrenaline rush of like, oh, I've got to top off my magazines. But there's nothing that beats the Proton pack for humans versus zombies. So of course the blaster will be compatible right out of the box with the Proton pack, and I know a bunch of you are now asking, when is the Proton pack going to be back in stock? We're looking at Q1 2024. I finally have a new engineer that's going to redesign the boards for parts that are actually available. It's been a supply chain nightmare. Believe me, it hurts me more than it hurts you guys. I really have wanted that on the shop. We have enough parts in the warehouse minus the boards to do another 500 plus units that has just been sitting there for a year and a half or 2 years. It's honestly painful as a business owner to see, but I'll be excited to get that back out next year as well. This blaster has been a long time in the making. Anytime we do something on the shop, we really want to make sure that we get it right as far as printability, reliability, and testing. We can't wait to get these out to you, but I have just one more thing. This is Juno's Fury. Now, this blaster has a couple of different inspirations. First, the most obvious is just the Hurricane and the way that I started. This is also the Silfrino, which is a ball fed into Flywheels prototype that I did years ago. Another creator on YouTube, Andrew Atchison, came up with the rough idea of this, which is just a tube to an air-fed mag. Very similar to the very first Zeus that I modded with this exact tubing. So we put this together as well. This is a prototype, so this will be out in another month or so after we clean up how it works and where the loading door is. But down below we've got a little EDF fan that we will 3D print, and a little fan cover there, of course. And then in the base of the blaster, in the handle, is an XT30 connector that's a pass-through connector to power this off of the rev trigger. And essentially what you've got at that point is whatever length of tubing you want to add up to a certain length acts like a mini Proton pack. I think this has about a 40 round capacity as it sits right here, plus or minus. We're still working out the ideal length and the fan profile, so this isn't optimized. Feeding's not perfect yet, but we are gonna get there. We know the design works, it just needs a few tweaks. That went way too quick. I think we'll probably relocate the loading door from up here to down here, because right now it is causing a little bit of congestion, but we wanted to show this off as a little prototype in my personal preference of colors right now. I think it's a really fun blaster, and I could see just as a scavenger loadout, this is just super fun. You could make the hose a little shorter and it could fit in front of your arm, or let it go in back. I think it opens up a lot of unique capabilities, and it's pretty easy to add on or take away. It's just the Proton pack back essentially, and this base part, which can be replaced with a plug. Very, very fun. On the note of Andrew, we probably have one of his blasters coming next year as well. We're pretty excited about that, so more on that at a later date. Thank you so much for watching and for checking out Juno. We are so excited to finally get this out, and we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Would you like to print one? Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'm out of darts. Today we are launching a brand new rival flywheel blaster. Every king needs a queen. Can't load the mag backwards.